We're going to talk about the transverse abdominis. We'll call it TA for short. It's actually the deepest layer of the abdominal wall. It originates from the lower 6 ribs, comes around the iliac crest and the inguinal ligament, and attaches itself into the posterior part of the internal oblique, the linea alba, and the xiphoid process. Together with the internal and external obliques, it actually helps to raise the intra-abdominal pressure and also has a downward effect, pulling the ribs down. Is the middle layer of the abdominal wall. It originates from the thoracolumbar fascia, comes around the iliac crest and the lateral 2/3 of the inguinal ligament. It attaches onto the xiphoid process, the linea alba and the pubic crest. The action of it to work unilaterally is to flex the trunk to the same side, and together with all the muscles it helps to pull the ribs down and raise the intra-abdominal pressure. The external oblique is the outermost layer of the 3 abdominal muscles. It originates from the ribs 5 to 12, comes around into the iliac crest and attaches into the anterior superior iliac spine and the pubic crest. The action of this muscle is to rotate the trunk to the opposite side and also to pull the ribs down and increase the abdominal pressure. The multifidus is a posterior muscle of the vertebral column. It's a small groove that goes between either side of the spinous vertebrae. It originates from the dorsal surface of the sacrum and attaches into the vertebrae above. It goes all the way up to the cervical vertebrae. The action of it is to actually extend the spine, rotate, and gently flex either side.
Let's start by discussing the role of transversus abdominis. This is the deepest layer of the abdominal wall. Whenever you draw the navel back in towards the spine, that's you activating that deep transversus muscle, together with a long, deep back muscle known as the multifidus. The two together help in the role of core stability. I'm going to now show you how to activate this transversus muscle in 3 different positions. I'll show you first and then we'll do it together afterwards. The first position is in the relaxation position, lying on our backs with our knees bent, feet, knees and hips about hip width apart. Working towards a neutral pelvis. To find it, remember we tilt the pelvis north first and then south, and come to rest halfway between the two in a neutral position, ideally where the pubic bone and the hip bones lie at the same height and in the same plane. If it feels uncomfortable for you to be in this neutral position or awkward in any way at first, go to a position that feels comfortable for you, and as the abdominal muscles get stronger, you can work to a more neutral position. So here, we breathe in through the nose, and as we breathe out, draw the belly button, suck it in back towards the spine, flattening the abdominals. But when you do that, be careful not to pull in so much or exaggerate the movement that you end up tilting the pelvis north. It's a very subtle pulling in. Breathing in, and then drawing the belly button in flat, back to the spine, retaining the spine's natural curves and keeping that neutral position. We'll now go on to the all fours position. In this 4-point kneeling position, you want to have the knees under the hips and the hands under the shoulders, with the elbows pointing back and the elbows soft, not locked out. Find the neutral position of the pelvis by tilting north and then south, and then coming halfway between to that neutral position. Also find the neutral position of the head. Try not to let it drop down. Keep the head pushing upwards towards the ceiling, but not backwards, so you retain the natural curves of the cervical spine. And then keep the gap between the ear and the shoulders, so you're not hiking the shoulders up to the ears, nor collapsing in between the shoulder blades. Pull the shoulder blades apart. So, gently allowing the abdominals to hang out, and then very slowly pulling the navel back towards the spine. If this position is uncomfortable on your wrists, or if you have a knee problem, I will provide you with an alternative position after this one. So, imagine you've got a scalding hot cup of tea on your lower back and pelvis, so that when you pull in the abdominals, you don't tilt the pelvis. So here we go. Breathing in. And as you breathe out, pull that navel back to the spine, flattening the abdominals. Breathing in. And then breathing out. I'll now show the alternative position in case you have any knee problems or wrist problems, and this will be lying on your side. This is the alternative to the 4-point kneeling position, lying on our side. You may wish to place a small head cushion between your ear and shoulder for extra comfort. Make sure your joints are stacked one on top of the other, hip over hip, knee over knee, foot on top of the other foot. Keep the waist nice and long so your body isn't collapsing and sagging to the floor. So lengthen the waist. You may want to place your hand here in front. Breathe in, and as you inhale, allow the abdominals to rise. And as you breathe out, pull that belly in back towards the spine. You may notice that it creates a little gap underneath here as you do so. Breathe in. And then as you breathe out, pull in that navel nice and tight. Back towards the spine. Our last position is lying face down. Our last position is lying face down. You can place your forehead on top of your two hands. Keep the back of the neck nice and long. In this position, you're going to breathe in, As you inhale, allow your lower abdominals to fill with air, almost like a balloon filling with air. You'll feel your waistline expand. And as you exhale, push the air out of the tummy and pull that belly button away from the floor so your waistline shrinks. Be careful in this position that when you pull in the abdominals, not to exaggerate or over pull. Otherwise, you might end up tightening the bottom muscles or moving the pelvis itself. So keeping the bottom muscles free of tension. There shouldn't be any movement in the back at all. Breathing in. And as you breathe out, pull in the navel away from the floor. You should almost be able to slide a piece of paper underneath the abdominals as you do that. And then gently release and relax. So lying on your back in the relaxation position, you can place a small head cushion under the skull so that you maintain the natural curves of the cervical spine. So, breathing in, exhaling, tilting the pelvis north, releasing, and then south, and releasing to find our neutral position. Breathing in through the nose, allow the abdomen to rise a little, and on the exhalation, drawing that navel back towards the spine, flattening the abdomen, but still remaining in that neutral position, no tilting or arching of the back. Breathe in, allow the abdomen to rise a little, keeping the shoulders relaxed. Exhaling, drawing that navel in, just a small amount. And here's where we talk about the 30% rule. We want to engage these transversus muscle by no more than 30%. There's two reasons for this. When we grip or over pull in the muscles, we tend to get other muscles, usually stronger muscles other than the core muscles, helping out. And we really want to learn to isolate the core muscles and allow them to work on their own. The other reason we don't want to engage any more than 30% is we really want to be working these core abdominals for our full Pilates class. And they're going to fatigue very quickly if we grip them tightly more than 30%. They're not going to last for the full hour. So these muscles are meant for endurance. So that's the other reason we only engage 30%. So we say here, less is more. The less you contract, the more you'll be able to isolate. The harder you contract, the less you'll be able to isolate and the more likelihood of other muscles coming in doing the job of the core. This 4-point kneeling position may look easy, but it's relatively hard to achieve initially. So let's think about the knees being directly underneath the hips, whilst the hands are directly underneath the shoulders. We want to keep a neutral position of the pelvis, so we gently tilt the pelvis underneath, and then release, and then gently push it the opposite way, and then come halfway between the two to find our neutral position. We don't want to collapse into the shoulder blades. So we need to pull our shoulder blades apart so that there's no collapsing here. We want this area to be relatively flat. The head is often dropped down in this position. We need to lift the head so it's nice and high without throwing it back, and we want to keep the natural curves of the cervical spine. We want to keep the length in the spine as well. So think about a piece of string coming out of the top of the head and a piece of string coming out of the tailbone, lengthening the entire spine. The elbows are soft and pointing towards the back of the room. Here you imagine there's a scalding hot cup of tea on your pelvis and lumbar spine, so that when you pull the abdomen in, you're not going to tilt it over. So, initially, breathing in and allowing the abdomen to rise a little, and then as you exhale, drawing that navel, that deep transversus muscle back towards the spine without any movement in the spine itself. Breathing in, allow the abdomen to fill with air a little, and then exhaling, drawing that navel back towards the spine without affecting the position of the spine itself. In this final prone position, lying face down, place the hands underneath the forehead and ensure the shoulders and the rest of the body are nice and relaxed. As you inhale, allow the abdomen to fill with air, almost like a balloon inflating, and the waistline will expand. As you exhale, pull that transversus muscle away from the floor, the navel pulls in and the waistline shrinks, but there's no movement in the spine or the back, and the bottom cheeks stay relaxed. So breathing in, allow the abdomen to fill with air like a balloon and the waistline to expand. Breathing out through the mouth, no more than 30%, pull that navel away from the floor as if you were to slide a piece of paper underneath, but nothing moves in the entire spine.